Deep in the rugged hills, 30 miners toiled in the Blackridge Mine, a labyrinth of tunnels stretching miles beneath the earth. The mine was old, its history filled with whispers of cave-ins, missing workers, and strange sounds echoing in the darkness. But the pay was good, and most of the crew dismissed the superstitions as nothing more than ghost stories. That all changed one cold winter morning. Tom, the grizzled foreman, gathered the crew before the shift. He'd been in the mine longer than anyone and knew every corner of it, but even he looked uneasy that day. "Listen up," he began, his voice carrying through the cavernous entrance. "We're going deeper today. Section E12. It hasn't been touched in over 50 years. The men exchanged uneasy glances. Section E12 had been closed long before most of them started working. Rumors said it was sealed off after a collapse, but some whispered about strange screams that were heard before the disaster. "We're not staying long," Tom continued, glancing at the crew. "Just collecting samples and inspecting the rock. Orders from management." Reluctantly, the men geared up and descended into the mine. The tunnels grew narrower and darker as they approached E12. The air grew heavier, and an odd, damp stench began to fill their lungs. A smell none of them could identify. "Does anyone else smell that?" one of the miners muttered, adjusting his helmet. "Just old rock," Tom grunted, though his tone lacked conviction. When they finally reached the entrance to E12, everyone stopped. A rusted metal gate blocked the tunnel, its surface covered in strange markings. Scratched into the metal was a symbol, a circle with intertwining lines inside it. None of the men could decipher its meaning. Tom stepped forward, removed the chain securing the gate, and pushed it open. The rusty hinges screeched, the sound echoing down the tunnels and making everyone flinch. Inside, the darkness was deeper than they expected. Even the beams of their flashlights seemed weak, as if the blackness was swallowing the light. They moved cautiously, their footsteps crunching on the rocky ground. Then strange things began to happen. The rocks beneath their boots felt warm to the touch. Shadows flickered on the walls, moving unnaturally, as if something unseen was shifting in the corners of their vision. One of the younger miners, Mike, suddenly froze. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. The group stopped. In the silence, they heard it, a faint whisper, too soft and distant to make out the words. "There's no wind down here," one of them muttered. The whisper grew louder, merging into a guttural growl that reverberated through the tunnels. Before anyone could react, the ground beneath them trembled. Rocks crumbled from the ceiling, sealing off part of the group from the others. Through the chaos and dust, Tom shouted, "Back to the surface! Now!" But it was already too late. Figures began to emerge from the shadows of the tunnel. They weren't human. Their bodies were impossibly thin, with joints bent at unnatural angles. Their glowing red eyes pierced through the darkness, locking onto the miners. One by one, the creatures snatched the men. Their claw-like hands dragged the screaming miners into the abyss. Tom swung his pickaxe at one of them, but it was ripped from his hands in an instant. The few remaining miners bolted. They sprinted through the narrow passages, chased by the guttural howls of the creatures. The whispers grew louder, blending into a deafening roar that drowned out their panicked breaths. Only 3 men made it back to the surface. Their eyes were empty, and their faces frozen in terror. They couldn't explain what they had seen, only that something inhuman lived deep below. The mine was sealed shut the very next day, its entrance welded with thick steel plates. But locals say that on quiet nights, if you venture too close, you can still hear the whispers rising from the earth, beckoning, luring anyone foolish enough to return to the darkness where the light no longer shines.